Now things have changed. We are culturally much more ready for democracy than we were in 1979. Our major obstacle is state violence.
Dear friends, welcome to another edition of Forum 2000 Online Chats. My name is Hasler Iglesias, and today we have with us Dr. Ladan Boroumand. Dr. Ladan Boroumand is the co-founder of the Abdorrahman Boroumand Center for the Promotion of Human Rights and Democracy in Iran, and she's also the co-laureate of the 2009 Venezuelan Award for her work in defense of human rights in Iran. And nowadays, she's a visiting fellow at the National Endowment for Democracy. Thank you for being here, Dr. Boroumand.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, let's start talking about something you have said in the past. And you have affirmed that the Iran people, although they don't have access to weapons or propaganda channels, they are stronger than the regime. Please share with us the reasons for this conclusion and this affirmation.
Literally, in the trial of strength between state and society in Iran, the number of people who are against the regime is much more important than the number of people who support the regime. And what the Iranians have done without arms is to make the most of the digital revolution. They have used one of the strengths of the regime was to impose its narrative about the Iranian society, not only upon the Iranian society, but also upon the world. And the digital revolution has empowered the Iranian society, and they have used it in many ways in building up a counter narrative and showing to themselves and to the world that the Islamic Iran, the ideal Islamic Iran that the regime claims exists, is non-existent, and underneath the cover of propaganda, there is another Iran.
Yeah, wonderful to know that. And also, can you please go deeper in how has Iranian civil society organized themselves to achieve freedom for the country? You have talked about the internet and the new technologies, but how does it feel for civil society in Iran to organize themselves against this authoritarian regime? And what have been their obstacles and experience?
Actually, organizing, the regime has made sure to make organizing literally impossible. When you are two people, you become three, you become suspect. And as soon as people try to organize, get together, they are attacked by the regime. I give you an example. You know that in between 1997 and 2005, there was an amazing development of civil society organizations, civil initiatives. People were getting together, human rights organizations were appearing, organization for women rights were appearing. But since 2005 until now, the regime has literally destroyed all of these organizations, and many activists are constantly harassed, constantly in prison, and it makes it impossible to do that. So what the alternative to this with the digital revolution is that, for instance, I can give you an example that for me it's really very revealing, is the way somehow accidentally one activist outside Iran put out a picture of herself without the veil. And this became the beginning of other Iranian girls, ladies, sending to her a picture of themselves without the veil. And she called this platform My Stealthy Freedoms. And basically what they did, because the Iranian women are not allowed to use the public space inside Iran to tell the world who they are and what they want to do, this alternative space online, which was safe from Iranians' attacks because it was located outside Iran, became the alternative public space where Iranian women could show what they wanted and who they were. And from this subversion of public space, from real space to virtual space, then the dynamic of this movement, which is not really organized, it's just a connection and a sort of forum, and every single person, member of this forum, takes independently an initiative. And you saw that from a virtual public space, they then spilled over into the physical public space in Iran when they started to take off. First, they were sending you pictures of them that they had taken clandestinely. But then they came out on Wednesday to the streets, and they wore a white scarf as a sign that these people are the very people who are against the mandatory veil. And then they took their veils off, and they started to oppose the security forces. After that, they took another step. One woman got up on this on a electricity power box and took off her veil. And this was not only a sort of passive resistance, it became an active statement. So you see how the interaction and the articulation of virtual space to the real space had created a new dynamic that the Iranian regime has difficulty to control because it's not organized and because it depends on the idea. For instance, it was not the women who started this My Stealthy Freedom page is in America. Her name is Masih Alinejad, and he's an amazing, energetic activist. But she didn't make a decision for this woman to go on the electricity box. The woman made it. And after that, other women made this decision. It's completely unorganized. So in a way, by completely blocking the Iranian forces' capacity to structure and organize, the Iranian regime has put itself in a weak position because every single citizen at every moment could emerge, do something, and then disappear. And this makes the control of the society much more difficult. But this has been made possible only by the digital revolution, because people, by seeing each other online, notice that they have the power. They notice the power of the powerless, basically. And this is we all are very worried about the impact of digital revolution on the survival of democracy in established democracies. In totalitarian regime, digital revolution has been really very helpful.
Many thanks for this incredible story and this incredible example of how symbolism and nonviolent activism can be so powerful. And I took advantage of this to explain to our audience your experience. You have co-founded the Abdorrahman Boroumand Center for the Promotion of Human Rights and Democracy in Iran. And through all your activism and job, you are a co-laureate of the 2009 Lech Walesa Award for your work precisely in the defense of human rights in Iran. And nowadays, you are a visiting fellow at the National Endowment for Democracy. And looking deeper into this international side, you mentioned that Iranians in their country, they aren't allowed, or they don't have the tools to speak up to the other countries and to show their reality while being in Iran. Do you think liberal democracies have failed to address properly the threat of the Iranian regime? Would it be possible for them to do more? How do you perceive this interrelation with the international community?
Well, liberal democracies failed for a very long time to do their part, because the promotion of democracy is a global movement, and it cannot be you cannot think of this promotion as a nation state's separate movement. It's global. and it should be global. And actually, we have a lot to learn from communism on that respect. Until 2001, Western liberal democracies completely ignored Iran and basically submitted to the state narrative. After 2001, they realized that Islamism has become a danger for democracies. And since then, every day they get another proof of that. I can mention, all the bombing in Madrid, in London, in Paris, Charlie Hebdo. And, they know that this is not something that regards the Iranians and it's not their problem. It has expanded, evolved, multiplied, and it is targeting liberal democracy, as Khomeini, from the day one when he started to implement his program, defined himself as a negative image of liberal democracy and universal human rights. He was very clear about that. But the Western, they didn't take him seriously. It's like you don't take Hitler or seriously, or when Trump says, if I'm not elected, it means that elections are fraud in 2016, you don't take him seriously. You think the guy is crazy. But these are political, philosophical statements. If you don't take them seriously, they come back and bite you. And this is what happened with Islamism. Since 2001, however, the West has done a little bit of effort to counter the narrative of the Islamists by creating space for dissidents and, launching Radio Free Europe that became Radio Farda in Iran, or Voice of America, which saw its budget really multiplies, and other possibilities, and NED that started to invest much more, but NED is much more independent from the state, from the governments, to support dissidents inside Iran. But this is a long term, and we need to do much more. What the Western government and Western society have done is too little and too late, and we need to do more on that.
Certainly. Thank you for sharing that, because myself, being a Venezuelan democratic activist, also feel related to that. And just to finish with one last question, is thinking more about the future and looking forward, how do you envision a democratic transition in Iran? Is it possible? What would have to occur to open that door? How do you think forward about that hope to have democracy in Iran?
You are asking a question that is really very urgent question that we are asking ourselves right now, because Iran has been in turmoil for 4 years now. We have had mass uprising, we have had chronic protest. The government is completely destroying the system, because it's not the DNA of the Islamic government is not turned to the management of the country, it's turned to God and to impose the God's will upon the world. So they don't acquire the skill and the know-how of management. So we have water issue, ecological problem, economics problems, political problems, violence, and so on. So we are asking ourselves how to do, because we see that the country is really being destroyed. And the state violence, obviously, is the major obstacle to us, from countering the narrative, from showing discontent, to push forward to a step towards the transformation, change of regime, transition to democracy. My belief is that the ideological and cultural ground are there, which we didn't have in 1979. Everybody was communist in Iran in 1979, or Marxist, or we had very few who understood. John Locke was not translated into Farsi. We had many versions of Lenin imperialism, the supreme stage of capitalism. And everybody knew that. Nobody had heard about John Locke. And this is revealing. Now things have changed. We are culturally much more ready for democracy than we were in 1979. Our major obstacle is state violence. So if the world could pressure Iran, and it has the means of doing it, to create a space for us to organize, then I think we would be able to go forward. And I think it would change the face of the Middle East, because we were the first who changed the face of the Middle East towards Islamism. And now Iranians are changing religion. Shiism is not anymore a majority religion in Iran. Iran is the country where the majority, there is the highest rate of Christianization in Iran. People are reacting against this regime in many cultural ways. And so all of these, I think, where liberal democratic strategies should sit, think together with us, with you. It's very important that we get all together, Venezuelan, Chinese, Russians, Ukrainian, all together to see how we should push in our respective countries for democracy. It's not easy, I must tell you. It's not easy, but we have to do that.
Yeah, completely agree. And I do believe, as you do, that in that way, as authoritarianism support each other, we would need more coordination of world democracies with themselves, but also to countries governed under authoritarian regimes. Well, yes. We're running out of time. Many thanks for your insights, for your anecdotes and your explanations of the Iranian reality. I share with you my solidarity. I truly feel we are all the same struggle for democracy and freedom in the world.
Yes.
And thank you.
And actually Ukrainians are fighting our war too, really.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the same struggle for democracy and freedom all over the world.
Yeah. If they defeat Russia, all of us will have a space to breathe. Certainly. That's true. Thank you for your interest.
Thank you. And thank you to you, friends. Keep in touch with this Forum 2000 online chat and wait for the next episode. Many thanks.